actually cut them in two and put the front half on a back half. But I would drive his cars. He did a great job. He had cars that were just obliterated. But then it got to the point where flood cars, they used to repair them back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. We would pull the carpets out and get all the water out and then take the wiring harnesses and dry them out and, clean all the grease, clean the water out of the harnesses and get whatever was wet and then do it. And then the insurance companies found that a year or two later, weird little gremlins would start picking up, coming up, 8 months later, 9 months later, all of a sudden some kind of weird electrical problem. And then they would go back and get these insurance claims supplements, 9 months later for water, it was a water problem. And then it was electrical problem for this, an electrical problem for that, electrical problem for that. So they basically ended up with a policy of if it's water damaged, we don't even mess with it. If it's got any water in it whatsoever, it's total, period. They just sell it all for salvage. But some of these salvage cars are not that good of a deal. I mean, they get so much money for them for salvage that it's not really a deal when you buy them.
No, it's not. The only one that I would ever consider personally is sometimes you'll see cars with a branded title because the mileage is not correct. And a lot of times that happens when you go to get your car an oil change done and they input 5,000 miles instead of 50,000 miles. And now there's this anomaly when they're looking at your mileage. It goes 5,000, 7,000, 15,000, 20,000, then it drops back down to 5,000. That will give you a branded title. Sometimes you can get that fixed. Sometimes you can get that fixed. You can apply and say, this was a mistake. I need it corrected. And other times you can't. And mileage isn't sometimes the biggest thing. If an odometer was replaced, if you had a mechanical odometer fail and you went to go replace it with a new odometer, it has a different mileage, you're going to get a branded title. That doesn't mean that anything is really that wrong with the vehicle. Just the mileage is not what your mechanical odometer states.
Ugh, that's not good. Well, I mean, that makes it a little tough, folks.
It's not
really
good.
Does.
It's not good, but it's also not as bad as buying a car with water, fire, accident damage, right? You have an idea of what the actual mileage is, but when you look at your odometer, it's incorrect.
Right.
I would take a risk on a car like that if it was, for a daily driver. If it was for an investment, that's a different story, and it's a little bit more contemplation that goes on.
Yeah, if you're a daily driver or if you have a salvage car and you know the history of the vehicle and it's like your own vehicle or something, like I've said, where you had a wreck and I had a friend of mine, his truck was wrecked and they went ahead and totaled it and they said, you want to buy it? And he went, sure. And he bought it and fixed it, but had a salvage title and he had it and he loved it, kept it for forever, but he couldn't sell it for anything after that. That's the problem.
Right.
But you got to understand, it's hard to insure it. It's hard to, if you have to finance it, the finance companies won't finance it.
Finance. Yep. That's another big one is finance. It's tough.
Yeah. But if you get a good enough deal, it's a different story, so, we gotta worry about that. So either way, it's been a great show. We got a lot of cool stuff. I'm glad to talk to you about my trip. That was really the trip of a lifetime to Yellowstone. And I can tell you, I never saw a bear, but we saw coyotes and moose and eagles. Which we see eagles
in the small town of Elmira, New York. A boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The game is over, but this time, instead of asking how many goals did you score or what were your stats, try asking these questions. Were you a good teammate? Were you coachable? Did you give 100%? And did you have fun? Because those are the values that school sports instill in Ohio's young people, where winning and losing are secondary to the life lessons that will stay with kids long after their playing days are over. This is the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Educate through sports.
This is Matt Lipsack, the voice of the Youngstown Phantoms, and your home for Phantoms hockey is Western Reserve Radio.
Wheels, and then you also go to Instagram and check out Let's Talk Wheels SBN because we love that stuff. So check us out there. Have a great week, folks, and we hope to see you again.
Do you want to learn the secret to becoming a published author in a few easy steps? Here's all it takes with help from Dorrance Publishing. For over 100 years, we've assisted individuals like you to fulfill their dreams of becoming a published author. When you call right now, you'll be assigned your own personal consultant who will help you through the entire book publishing and design process. Then, your book goes into production. It gets promoted, distributed, and finally, made available where books are sold. If you've got a book idea, call Dorrance Publishing right now for a free consultation. We'll help get your great idea out of your head, on paper, printed, and sold. It's a free, easy call. We're trusted by thousands of book authors just like you. So don't wait another day. Call now.
800-847-1362. That's 800-847-1362. 800-487-1362.
Did you know you can go to a trade school college that has you learning as an apprentice in a real radio station, culinary kitchen, film studio, or in a recording studio? Stay out of debt and out of a boring college classroom and learn on the job in the real world. The Radio Connection puts you in a real radio station. The Recording Connection trains you in a real recording studio. The Film Connection has you learning under a real filmmaker. And CASA has you learning one-on-one in a real restaurant. It's your life. Amplify it now and learn as an apprentice in a unique way to get a career as a broadcaster, podcaster, chef, music producer, or filmmaker. Just visit one of our sites, radioconnection.com, recordingconnection.com, filmconnection.com, or casaschools.com. Or call 1-865-413-5724. That's 1-865-413-5724.
Wake up call!
Duran, right?
Yep.
Can you find Duran at a local casino?
Probably.
You know what's amazing? These guys, at one point, they're playing in arenas, right? And then they're going to be like, come for the buffet, stay for Duran.
Show starts at 6.
Buffet begins at 5.
Wake up call with Tony D and Ron Culver. Weekdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern.
Wake up call!
Herm Edwards, NFL analyst, joins us. We really believe that there will be nothing like the Patriots those 20 years ever again. I know there's a combination of Brady. I get that. If you did it for 10 years, it would be amazing, right?
Look, I said it when this was all happening the last couple of years. If you were a Patriots fan, I laugh, I chuckle. I say, they lived in Camelot for 20 years.
It sure did.
They thought the Super Bowl parade was like the Macy's parade. That's just what we do. We go to the Super Bowl. You don't go this year, we go next year, right?
In terms of the last couple of years, what do you think hampered them to a point where they're 4-13?
Their ability to score points. I mean, when you looked at them on offense, who scares you? When they break the huddle, you go, okay, who scares you? Nobody. And I mean, it starts with the trigger, man. Who's the quarterback? And you're playing musical chairs with that guy. And then you get a couple different coaches coaching the guy. It's just hard.
Wake up call with Tony D and Ron Culver. Weekdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern.
Children are the greatest joy and our best hope for a better future. Friends, they are the future. But did you know that millions of kids are facing hunger every day? Food is not just food. It's energy, health, confidence, hope, and even love. Yes, love.
Thank you!
Learn more about how No Kid Hungry is helping end child hunger in America at helpnokidhungry.org.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in, and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier. Then make sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
It's time to kick back and listen to the Sports Page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning Sports Page, Pat Lucia, 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. Do it every Saturday morning here on Western Reserve Radio. A lot to get to today. All the coaching vacancies have been filled. The latest, Mike McDonald, and no, it's not Michael McDonald, singer, Doobie Brothers, one of my favorite artists. It's not that Michael McDonald. This Michael McDonald, or Mike McDonald, is 36 years old. He was the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator, and he is now the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks. And also hired is Leslie Frazier, who was the defensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, and he will be the assistant head coach. Leslie Frazier, older, obviously there to assist Michael McDonald, or Mike McDonald, as he navigates his way to the head coaching position through the Seattle Seahawks. And it's funny is because he's half the age of Pete Carroll. He's obviously the defensive side of the ball, which was Pete Carroll's forte. So bottom line is they just got a Pete. Some people are saying that this is just a younger version of Pete Carroll. In fact, he's half of Pete Carroll's age. So Pete Carroll being 72, Mike McDonald being 36. He is now the Seattle Seahawks head coach. The other hire was Dan Quinn, who was the Dallas Cowboy defensive coordinator. He is now the head coach for the Washington Commanders, and we'll see how that goes. Interesting is because after people are kind of wondering why Dan Quinn did get a job, if you saw the Dallas Cowboy defense play or not play against the Green Bay Packers, you have to kind of wonder how Dan Quinn did get a job, because after all, the defense for the Cowboys was up and down all year. It seemed to be good at home, not so good on the road, and then the game that obviously mattered, the big wild card game, the defense was a no-show, and Jordan Love, the young quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, pretty much lit up Dan Quinn's defense. So go figure, Dan Quinn gets rewarded by getting the head coach job of the Washington Commanders. So we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. Hopefully, his defense, the Washington Commanders defense, plays a lot better than the defense of the Dallas Cowboys, which again, this past year did seem at times very good, but then at other times, not so good. That San Francisco game that Dallas got absolutely blown out. And then again, the Green Bay Packer game, the wild card game, the defense was obviously, as I previously said, a no-show. But Dan Quinn gets a head coaching job. So where does that put Eric Bieniemy? Some people were wondering if Eric Bieniemy's name was ever in that formula, and I would probably go to say that it was not. So Eric Bieniemy will probably be an offensive coordinator somewhere in the NFL. So we'll wait and see, but I don't know if Eric Bieniemy's ever going to get a head coaching job in the NFL. His name's always been bantered around in the coaching carousel, and the man's been interviewed more times than I can only imagine. But he was obviously now will end up probably being an offensive coordinator. And that's the other thing now. A lot of the Ken Dorsey is going to be the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, taking over for Alex Van Pelt. So now they do the musical chairs with the offensive coordinators, and the defensive coordinators kind of cycle in and out of teams and get moved around. So I don't know where all that goes as far as does it make a team better or worse? Because it seems like Dorsey was the one that had the problems with Buffalo, correct? Was let go after there were too many men on the field in that debacle that Buffalo had during the season. And now he's the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know if they got smarter or it's just kind of just recycling these coordinators around the league. And to some extent, the coaches get recycled around the league. But the coordinators a lot more because the coordinators are the kind of the fall guy. The other news out there was Marvin Harris is now going to be the assistant head coach for the Raiders and to Antonio Pierce. So he'll be obviously these older guys like Leslie Frazier and Marvin Lewis are old head coaches and coordinators. Marvin's many, many years as a head coach for the Bengals. Help the younger coaches kind of navigate their way through the NFL as the head coach. And it does make a fair amount of logical sense to do that. You have a younger head coach who has, this isn't like their first job as a head coach. Now they can at least get the older, more seasoned, experienced, usually head coach to help them out. So that, that makes a lot of sense. Because again, they're learning to be a head coach.
And they get the guys that they know.
Right.
They have a relationship, Pearson and Marvin Lewis. So it's somebody that worked together out there at Arizona State, different things like that. Same thing with Mike McDonald, who worked in the I guess it was with Baltimore for a little bit with Leslie Frazier. And that's why he hired him to be the assistant head coach with him. Older guy that's been around, and it helped direct Mike McDonald. That's a guy right there that moved up really quick, and he's done a great job. He's at Michigan. They were no joke. He moved on to the Ravens. He kept that defense going crazy, and now he's a head coach. So it's somebody to put their time in. When I say put the time, that when they're organized and do things like that, sometimes they move quicker than other guys that may not be as organized. These guys moved up quickly to be head coaches, and then they do the smart thing. Don't think they know everything. Let me get these veteran guys around me to help assist. So good. I just think that's a good job on both of them to be able to do that.
All 8 coach vacancies have now been filled. So there are no head coaching vacancies out there. Nobody now is going to be fired in the NFL. We thought maybe McCarthy would get fired by the Cowboys. They've kept him. Sirianni with the Eagles kept him. So obviously, but That means Belichick is in the waiting. And Vrabel is also in the waiting. Both coaches did not get jobs. It won't bother Vrabel at all. He's I think Vrabel's only 50 years old, so he'll be fine. Belichick's a year older, and he will be, by the time he gets another job in the NFL, he'll be like 73 years old.
Yeah.
So, or close to 73.
Now,
So,
an interesting situation that might happen within the next, it won't be in the next week or so, but it could happen in the next month or so, is Andy Reid. Andy Reid
retires.
might retire. He may, whether win or lose. There's a possibility that he may not come back. And then that job would be open. But they said Belichick did not get the job because it didn't happen, as far as coaching, had nothing to do with that. But his interpersonal skills with players have been the issue. And I read that article. That's one of the reasons he did not get it at Atlanta, because him and the owner.
The owner wanted him.
Yeah, he's a very good friend, but his interpersonal skills, which I mean, I can't think it's not true. I mean, he's a guy that I think needs to have some, and he doesn't have anybody with him, but he does, because it's not that the game passed him by, but you got to be able to respond with the players of today. They're different than the players of yesterday, for sure. I mean, because I just look at how I look at a game compared to the way a player does today. And some of them are forced to play that way. I think about the one guy, I'm trying to think of his name, the safety that kept getting suspended, was out at Denver. What is his name? But they kept suspending him because they say he hitting people late or whatever. He's not even hitting late. He's coming in with his head. He's not coming in with his head. He's coming in with his shoulder, but then the runner ducks down. And what happens? You are going to get head-to-head collisions. And he's a guy that said he wants to continue to play, but he don't know how to play. That's a problem. And that's what you got. It's just a different game today than it was.
I think it's Kareem Jackson.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
He was suspended 4 games for multiple violations for unnecessary roughness.
They showed that the other day on his unnecessary roughness things, and some of them are almost comical. I mean, he's running, he's coming, he's going down with his shoulder, and the back lowers itself even lower.
Right.
And next thing they know, collision. Where he was aiming, you could see that wouldn't have happened until the back lowered itself. And then he gets called for it.
And then he gets,
and once they start making a couple calls on you,
right,
anything that's even remotely close, more than likely he's gonna get the call. It's really hard. I know for a fact of my mind thinking now, there's no way I could play in this game. There's absolutely no way.
It's
too hard.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. I mean, always taught to lower. I mean, you don't want to come with the crown in your head, because you can hurt yourself, kill yourself, really. But you come down low, head up, face mask there, shoulder in, and that's what you want to do. And you come forward and you bring all the thrust that you can. And what did the running back learn? Same thing. And it's always been a key is leverage. What is leverage? Lowest man wins.
Yeah.
So when you get lower, what's going to happen? Automatic. You can't get away from it, really. It's going to happen. When I see things like that, now if I see a guy run by and he's diving in there with his helmet, I'm all for that one, because that's spearing.
Yeah.
And they used to
when
have
they
that
lower
back in
the
day.
helmet, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
When they come in with the helmet, you see it.
Help out
right.
with a tackle, and you got a guy held up, and you come flying in with your helmet down with the crown head. Yeah, that guy needs to go. But those kind where, we talk about all the time with the roughing the passer, 315-pound lineman, he's coming at full blast. He leaves his feet, and then leaves his feet, might even get bumped by the offensive lineman, and then he hits the quarterback, roughing the passer. Now, I don't know how you stop 300 and something pounds in midair. And I just don't understand some of that.
That's the problem, I think, when you really break down, like, not with the referees. I think the calls that drive a lot of fans nuts. The roughing the passer is one of them. The pass interference or defensive holding is the other one.
Yeah.
Occasionally the offensive holding on the line, some of those are really questionable too. But they tend to get those right. The ones that I think they really get wrong are the defensive pass interference calls or those holding calls where the contact is like minimum. And I think that, again, it's the inconsistency of the call. And then the roughing the passer calls are just all over the board. I mean, and I'm convinced, and I believe this, that if it's a rookie quarterback and they get lambasted, they don't get the call. But if it's the veteran quarterback, like a Brady, we used to complain if you breathed on him, the flag came out. But Cam Newton got absolutely buried and assaulted, and then some.
Yeah.
And then there was like no flag.
Yeah. Same thing with Ben Roethlisberger.
And Roethlisberger.
Just let him get killed. They didn't care.
Yeah, Roethlisberger used to get, just absolutely obliterated sometimes. No flag. But, Brady didn't get he got brushed a couple times, and here comes the flag. And I mean, it's just, you've got to realize if you root for your team, bottom line is referees got to play in a part of that as far as if your team can win or lose, because they can make a call that can definitely determine the outcome of a game. And speaking of games, we'll come back to the coaches and then we'll talk about Russell Wilson's contract here, because that's a quarterback that obviously won't be back in Denver. Even though Russell Wilson says, I don't mind coming back to Denver, we know he's moving on. Yeah. But the impact on the contract, and he'll have a new contract. He's just going to start it. So some teams Denver's got to figure that out as far as, do they pay some of that, with the new team he goes to, how do they work all that out? But the contract, he does have an $85 million dead cap hit, but they could put that over 2 years, and I'll get more into that. Let's get back to the games. I know last weekend's game. The thing that obviously everybody was really squawking about on Monday, and then it could seem it went through the week, but kind of calmed down, was obviously, I mean, the bottom line is, I get Campbell, I get the thing. We're Detroit. We do it my way. We make a statement, but Guy, I know that. But when you're in game strategy, you've got to kick a field goal. I mean, I know you don't want to, but like the part that at halftime, they were up 7. They kicked the field goal at halftime to go up 17. Mm-hmm. San Francisco gets the ball. They drive down the field, they kick a field goal. It's 14 difference. Detroit gets the ball. They drive down the field, and instead of kicking the field goal, now I think it would have been like a 48-yarder. Then there's this talk about, well, this guy's not that good. I'm up to the point, but you kick him in the dome and you're outside. If you don't have a field goal kicker in the NFL that kick 50 in, you got to go. You got a problem. I mean, you better go find a guy. But my point is, I would say kick the field goal to keep your 3-point score up. Keep the 3-point score lead up. Yeah. And he didn't do it. Okay, fine. But toward the fourth quarter, when it's 6-7 minutes left, you got to tie the game there. I mean, I just don't understand why he didn't bring out the field goal kicker. You want to make the argument now, if the guy comes in the third quarter and misses the field goal from 48, you think, okay, the guy can't kick it. But that fourth quarter, you got to tie the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to get an argument on the third quarter, you didn't want to go for it. I guess, okay.
Yeah.
I still would have wanted to keep the being up by 3 scores. But that fourth quarter, when you're down 3 points and you're on the road and he's kicking about a 45-yarder, you have to kick the field goal. I know you're Dan Campbell and you're making a statement, but you have to have the ability to say a step back and say, okay, game management, this is what you have to do.
Yeah. Well, I think both of them he should have kicked at, both of them. I understand what he's doing to a certain extent, but not the last one. The last one, I just think you want to tie it. That earlier one, I'll give you a pass. But for me, I think it's always important in that game, not the regular season, even though every game in the NFL, that's what we love. Every game means something.
It all does.
But in that, it's the ultimate meaning of something because it's one and done.
Yeah, you're done.
So every time I got a chance to score, I'm trying to score. So if I got to kick a field goal, I'm kicking it. Now I can understand it's 58 yards or something like that.
Okay.
But if it's 50 and in,
right,
I'm kicking it. You got to kick it. You have to go ahead and try to make that field goal. And just think if that guy would have made that field goal, the first one.
Yeah.
You think he wouldn't be psyched on the next one? He'd be so confident, but I don't go for that he couldn't make it because I know I done seen the guy kick and make the field goals from deep, so I know he can make it. It's just that's their MO to do that. Even though people say that costs them game, I don't say that costs. There's a lot of other things that happen, and in all games, calls and different things that happen in a close game, and they lose. There's other factors in that game that cost a game, not just that call at the end but because you shouldn't even be in that predicament, especially when you have leads like that. It should never come down that should happen that way. That the team even get close. So it's just, things just spiraled out of control too, because once San Francisco it started with the luckier bounce off the helmet of Vildor. From then on, it was downhill. Because he made that catch, and it's like, oh my God. And then now you got Gibbs fumbling. And the thing that happened on there, it was a problem from the beginning. Because I think Gibbs might have went the wrong way. So it caused him to give the ball in a funny way where he never really had it. So he's trying to regain it. So this is the thing. When that happened, if I'm Gibbs, but that's me talking, and that's hindsight. When you're in the game, it's different. But you would think, I don't have the ball. That would have went through my head. What I'm going to do? I'm going to try to grab this ball, just go to the ground. I don't care if I lose 4 or 5 yards. But he continued to try to recapture the ball while running in traffic. And the next thing you know, the ball was loose. And then San Francisco gets another break. So it's just it's just the way the San Francisco has had some serious breaks that should have never happened. They never should have got past Green Bay, but they did. And this is it's just, they were destined to get where they at. That's all I can see. They were destined to get there. And these teams helped them out. Dan Campbell and those calls helped them out to get to where they wanted to get to.
Well, see that was the confusion. A lot of people couldn't figure out, okay, right at the end of the first half, Lions kicked the field goal to go basically up 24-7 at half. So they were up 21-7. They go, okay, let's kick the field goal, go up 24-7, 3 points, 3 scores. Okay, take it. Then third quarter starts. San Francisco gets the kickoff, drives down, settles for a field goal. 27-10. Lions have the ball. Kick the field goal. If you kick that field goal, you will go up 30-10. You've just negated the field goal that San Francisco scored. Watching the game, I thought when they did not make that fourth down, it seemed like the 49ers got energized a little bit.
It was energize you. You're at home.
Yep.
They didn't get it.
They didn't get it.
Needed momentum. We're catching up. Yeah.
If I were to say there was a point in time in that game where the momentum seemed to switch like almost flipping on a light switch. That was the point. When they didn't get that fourth down conversion and 49ers got the ball, and then they went like pretty much right down the field and put 7 points on. Now all of a sudden it's like 27-17. Now it's a game. Like now it's like, and then the fumble, and then it was just like, and then when San Francisco scored that touchdown to make it within 3 points, then all of a sudden I thought, San Francisco's going to win this game. I have a feeling they're going to pull this out now.
Yeah.
And it seemed like not going for that fourth down and not getting it, where if they would have kicked the field goal, even if they kicked the field goal and miss it, there would have been maybe a momentum switch, but not like the fourth down not getting it. It was like San Francisco came out and they were like, all right, now all we need is score a touchdown and we can get this thing within 10 points, especially when you clearly got outplayed for the half.
Yeah.
I mean, they got San Francisco has not been impressive in their 2 playoff games at all. They got outplayed by Green Bay, but managed to win. They beat the Lions because the coach doesn't kick the field goals when he should have. I'm sorry. I think if Detroit kicks the field goals, they win that game.
Yeah. And that's why I tell people.
Changed the game completely.
People have said to me, well, San Francisco beat that game. I said, no, Detroit lost. There's a difference.
We talk about that all the time.
They lost it because they can't control. Another thing I didn't understand what they were doing is they started throwing the ball. I mean, it was okay to throw it. They was throwing too much.
Right.
And then they started doing other little fancy stuff. And I love Ahmad St. Brown. I love that guy. That guy's tough. But I'm not going to have him running the football in important situations. I got 2 premier backs.
Right.
I'm running them. I'm not running him through there, even though he almost got close to the first down. I'm running my guys.
Right.
But I don't understand why you wasn't running the ball, because when you run the ball, what happens? Slows the game down, but the clock is running.
That's right.
And they didn't do that. They started incomplete pass, this, that. The clock is not running. Then you start getting some mistakes. San Fran gets back in the game. They got a lot of time on the clock. They got timeouts because nobody's using them. They're right back in the game. But if you run the football, you're fine. And it's just weird. Both games were weird because as bad as the Baltimore Ravens played, they were in the game all the way to the end.
Entire game.
The entire game they could easily win, but somebody kept saying, well, look what Lamar did. Yeah, he wasn't playing good. But let's look at the whole season of the Baltimore Ravens. What did Baltimore do best? Run the football. They were throwing every down.
I know.
Every down. Todd Muck or whatever it is, was calling passing plays. How are you doing that? I don't care what Kansas City was doing. I'm going to make you respect I'm a great running team, and I'm going to keep running. I'm going to keep pounding at you.
Well, in Kansas City's, I believe the run defense is at the bottom of the league. It's not a very good run defense.
But I will give it to you. It was playing great run defense that day. But you don't stop. But you're a great running team. Right. You're not going to discourage me from running the football just because you're stopping me. I'm going to break that down because before long, you don't just turn over one day and become the greatest run-stopping team. You might have a time of a quarter, 2 quarters, maybe even 3 quarters of great run defense. But I can help you have great run defense by passing the football, and I never really pounded at you. I got a great offensive line. I'm running the football. And they didn't do it. So they was already psyched out of their psyche.
That's Dave Clark. I'm Pat Lucia. Saturday Morning Sports Page. We'll come back after a real quick timeout on Western Reserve Radio.
Welcome Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
Let's be real. The odds of a high school athlete getting a college scholarship and making it to the pros are pretty slim. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to dream of becoming a pro athlete, even a famous one. But that's not why I play. My reason why? I love the competition.
My reason why is community.
My reason why is leadership.
My reason why is to challenge myself.
My reason why is love for the game.
And hey, if we don't make it to the pros or onto the cover of Sports Illustrated, that's okay. Because there's every reason to believe we'll excel in something even bigger than sports. We'll excel in life.
There are lots of great reasons to play high school sports. Tell us your reason using the hashtag #MyReasonWhy.
This message presented by the NFHS and the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
Saturday Morning Sports page. 330-707-4202. If you want to get in and talk sports on Western Reserve Radio, I'm Pat Lucia, Dave Clark. Joining me this morning, as always, talking a lot of the NFL football, what happened last weekend. Obviously, this weekend is the Pro Bowl and whatever they do. So they do all the stuff now.
Skills and stuff.
Yeah, the skills stuff. So it's probably
interesting.
an easy, if you want kind of an easy watch and probably entertaining, something you may want to tune into, but there will be no football as we know it.
You know what, Matt, a lot of people complained about it. And I used to like, oh, man, this is terrible. Then now that I sit back and look at it, this is probably how it should have been for some years, because really after a long season,
right,
and these guys could get a career injury in this game and they're done. So why put them at that risk in an all-star game?
Yeah.
You know, they didn't play the full season. Just let it be something like this, fun and enjoyment for the fans and the players too. So, you know, I right now I'm okay with it. But at first, you know, because I think back to the old days when they used to have
when they actually played the game.
They used to have a Pro Bowl in each conference,
right.
AFL and NFL.
Right.
Then when they came together, it was the AFC against the NFC, and they used to go at it.
I always liked in the preseason, they haven't done it, but I used to remember, we go back, you remember this.
Like this.
They used to play the College All-Stars.
Yeah.
Now that was fun.
The Super Bowl champion.
Right. The Super Bowl champ played the College All-Stars.
Yep.
I think there were a couple years, I have to go back and look. I believe the College All-Stars did win a couple of those games.
I can't remember that. I know they came close. I remember them playing the Packers one of those, and it was close. It was close. They battled them, you know. So you get the guys, they're not fully in the training camp yet. Those
No.
college all stars be ready to go to prove themselves.
What people need to understand is NFL used to play 14-game season.
Mhm.
They played 6 preseason games back
Yep.
then in the 60s and the 70s. The football players back then didn't get paid a lot of money.
Right.
$12,000, anywhere between. I read a book, an AFL book about the AFL. There was a wide receiver by the name of Albert DeBinion who played for the Buffalo Bills. Really good wide receiver. Not in the Hall of Fame. I haven't looked at his number. I always thought he was one of the best wide receivers in football back then. He was making $7,500 for the Buffalo Bills. And it was in this book I read. It was interesting. And he, even said that I knew players on the Jets that made double what I made, like 15,000. I made 7,500. But he said, I would never trade it for the world. I loved playing football at that level, playing for the Buffalo Bills, but I just thought it was interesting in that those players then had jobs during the off season because they had to have them. They weren't making a lot of money back then where they could say, okay,
right,
I could take the off season off and work out. No, those guys were probably really out of shape is because they were working other jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
So when they came into the training camp, they needed to get into football shape.
Yep.
Because again, they all had jobs because they weren't making oodles of boodles of money. They were making 7,500, 12,000, somewhere in that ballpark. Joe Namath had the big contract when he signed with the Jets. Sonny Werblin gave him that big 425,000, 27,000. But he was the outlier.
Right.
All the other players on that team were getting 12,500 a game. Some players, I think Matt Snell was making like 25,000 a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he came out of Ohio State and they gave him. But the whole point of it is getting back to it. It's just that those players did not make a lot of money. They needed to get jobs. They came into shape, came into training camp out of shape. But the college all-star game, we had the college kids playing. And I always thought that was really a cool game. I mean, I remember putting that on, watching that game.
Yep, I remember.
And I thought that was and some of those college all-star games were pretty good. I mean, those teams are pretty good.
Oh, yeah. And they were in better shape than the
And they
big
actually
guys.
were better. You see, that's the
and
point.
The thing. They were ready to play.
The younger kids were in better shape.
At that time. Now it would be a mismatch today because it's a business. Those guys still in shape. So they had to play the NFL team. They'll have some problems, but you still got some unique athletes that they would be in it. They'll still perform, but it'll be tough for them to do things. But those days have never happened. Too much money involved, and that's why you don't see a Pro Bowl game no more. None of that. It's just too much money, and that part does make sense to not have those, out there playing for fun, and then you in your career. So you definitely don't want to do that. And they could get hurt playing the flag football, but your chances are a lot better playing that than playing contact.
There was one year, actually, depending on how you want to put this, but how far, if you want to go back, college all-stars did win.
Yeah, around 70 somewhere, didn't they?
Actually, the last time the college all-stars won was actually in 1963. They beat Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers 20-17.
Okay.
That's the last time they won. But again, they did have some great games and they were interesting. The Baltimore Colts won in 71. They beat the college all-stars 24-17. Miami beat the college all-stars 14-3. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers did win 75 game, 21-14. In the last year they played, it was 76. Pittsburgh Steelers won 24-0. But if you want to start going back to the 50s, 3 times in the 50s, the college all-stars won.
Okay.
And then they did win. Actually, they won in the 40s, 3 times in the 40s. And then actually they won twice in the 1930s. So they've
I
been
didn't know they
playing
went
this
to, I
game,
didn't
and
know
I
they
didn't.
went to 76. I didn't realize it went that far.
Yeah, it started in 34. That game, I love some history. The game start in the first year they had it in 1934. It was a tie 0-0. And then the next year, the Chicago Bears beat the All-Stars 5-0. Then it ended in the tie in 36. The college All-Stars tied the Detroit Lions 7-7. 37, they beat the Green Bay Packers 6-0. The following year, the college All-Stars won again. They beat the Washington Redskins 28-16. So the well, you can make the argument back then. You start going back in that year. A lot of your football players that played great in college didn't even play NFL because it doesn't pay anything.
Right.
And they had other jobs that actually paid better. And they didn't want to,
right,
travel and get paid hardly any money to play football when they had a better job waiting for them.
Yep.
So, football has obviously evolved immensely, but I just think I crack up with history. I love it. But I think back of that now, and I thought it was a great idea. It went to 76. That was the last year they played
I
it.
didn't realize it went that far.
They made it to, and then the college All-Stars did not win again after 63. And they canceled it in 74 because of the strike.
Okay.
There was the NFL strike was in 74, so they did not play it then. But I always thought it was kind of a cool game.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching it. And I remember one game they played in the early 70s. I remember there was a severe rainstorm. And then they played it. They got into the third quarter. Yeah. God, this is so funny. But there was a game, and I'm going to try to get it here, that they played it and they canceled it. They played it to the third quarter, and then it was called because of inclement weather. And I know I'm trying to look up exactly when that was. I for some reason I'm thinking somewhere in the 1970s that happened, because I was actually watching the game and it was like, wow, look at that rain come down. And then they said, okay, that's it. They had to stop it.
Yeah. Well, I know I watched them all back then. I was into it.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a great game. I thought it was a great idea. I loved watching that game as a kid, and watching some of the college all-star guys play. And they actually played, like I said, all in all was a pretty good football game.
Yeah. Yep.
But getting back, obviously, to this, getting back a little bit to the Ravens, I was surprised. I thought the Ravens would win that game by 3 points.
Yeah.
We both took Kansas City and 4-1, but we didn't get the Frisco game right because obviously, again, San Francisco did not cover.
Nope. Once again, and I think they're the favorite for the Super Bowl right now by a couple points. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of San Fran. Maybe they'll be ready to roll, with all the hoopla and everything that's been going on with the, them getting through these games and the fallout of the Brock Purdy comments of everyone. It cracks me up. I love how networks or whoever you want to say show bits and pieces of things, like the fallout with the Cam Newton saying Brock Purdy
is a game manager.
And people were in outrage. Then I listened to the entire segment of what he said. He started naming game managers. He said Tom Brady's a game manager. He said he kept on going down the list of all the guys that are game managers. He said, but they're great game managers. He said there's a difference between a game manager and a difference maker. There is. He said Patrick Mahomes is a game manager per se, but he's a difference maker. He's a different maker because he does things off platform. Aaron Rodgers off platform. They don't, you got certain guys that are great players, and that's what he said. But if you can knock them off of where they're throwing from or whatever, they don't play as well as if it's clean pocket. He said you got other guys, they can clean pocket, not a clean pocket, confusion, doesn't matter. They make plays. Those are different type players. But they didn't show that part of it. So everybody went all in on him. And then just yesterday, I listened to Jim Miller. And if people remember, Jim Miller was a quarterback for the Steelers, the Bears.
Yes.
Came out of Michigan State.
He was at right.
He said himself, and he wasn't even talking about the Cam. He said, Brock Purdy is a great game manager. And he said, so is, this is going to be a great game. He said, and so is Patrick Mahomes. He said, but you know what? All 32 quarterbacks are game managers because you have so many things you have to manage. You got to call the play right. You got to make sure people in order. He said, what is that called? He said, that's called managing the game. He said, but then you got different guys to make a difference of what happens from their great managing of the game.
They improvise, like I think,
and that's the thing. See,
but
there was no outright rage about him saying that was okay.
Well,
that's because of who it was coming from.
Okay, let's
that's all.
Oh, for the record, going real quick back to the college all-star game, I want to throw this out there. Can't let go of this, but I will after this. The 1976 game, the last game of the series, that was the game that was called for inclement weather. Steelers beat the All-Stars 24-0. That was July 23rd of 76. That was the game they stopped 122 left in the third quarter because of inclement weather. I remember it just started to rain, like you could not see the field.
That must be 1 week. It used to be 1 week before the
played
Hall of Fame game.
This game was always played in early August, usually in early August. So, and then they moved it to July 31st, late July, early August is when the game was pretty much played. That we know, but that was that game, and again, you'll never see that ever again. But I wish we did. But again, as you previously stated, money has changed everything. What the players make has changed everything.
Yeah.
And again, the players made less money and played back then. And that was every sport. Basketball, football, and baseball. When you look at statistics from the players in especially the 60s, the 70s, when the money was at the 70s, the money started to get better. But in the 60s, 50s, and the 60s, and even before that, the money was nothing. But again, when I used to get the baseball cards in the 60s, you turned it over. It usually had what the guy did off season, whoever it was. Usually they had they all had jobs, teachers, salesmen, car salesmen, insurance salesmen, whatever it is. But the point is, they didn't make a lot of money, but they played all the games.
Yep.
Nobody sat out. Like I never heard like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. Those guys never sat out any games. Like Magic Johnson never had load management.
Well, they had a yesterday. It was on,
and neither did
Sports
Bird
Center.
or any of those guys. None of the guys.
They was showing the average of what they did. Jordan averaged,
Jordan
81 games a season during his career. That means he didn't miss any.
No,
he might have missed one game.
One game
somewhere. They had, I think, Bird and Magic were both at 80 or 79, something like that. And he said probably that average came because of some injury.
Oh, yeah.
Not because
no.
they just were sitting out.
No.
He said then they went further down. I think it was somebody from today's game. It's Westbrook and somebody else that also averaged 70-something games. That's what he averaged, 70-something games a year.
Westbrook is a throwback guy.
Yeah, no. He plays every game.
And he plays it like
the same.
And he plays it like it's the game 7 of a series.
Yeah.
And winner, because one thing, I wish he had a better shot because He plays so hard.
Yeah,
and you have to like the guy because of his competitive edge, but he plays every game and he doesn't take a play off. You could just tell that guy is just tweaked. He's driven.
Yeah.
But he's like the old Michael Jordan and Bird. He's like those guys back then. He plays, dives for the ball, plays defense. He's just, he's just a crazy type of player, but he plays so hard and he plays all his games.
And then they said it, and they gave out a statistic. They said for a guy that was only 2 guys a foot, they said the one was 5'9", only 175 pounds. The other one is barely 6 foot, 170 something pounds. That was Allen Iverson and Calvin Murphy. They both averaged 80 games a season. They'll never miss. And both of them did not play on the outside.
No.
They went to the basket.
They went.
Full gear. Just went right to the basket. They didn't care about getting knocked down.
No.
And the thing about Calvin Murphy, if you knocked him down the wrong way, you better get to running. Because this guy got in fight with centers, forwards, and a lot of them was scared of him because he was something.
Wasn't he like guy. Wasn't he the guy with the mixed martial arts?
And all kinds of
He had all kinds of self-defense stuff.
Those guys was getting out the way.
He was a
driven.
He was
You didn't mess with that guy, and you didn't mess with Van Leer.
Sloan. Van Leer was just
Van Leer and Sloan was the
toughest backcourt
ever.
of the Chicago Bulls back in the early 70s. They were both mean defensively, just tough guys. And Van Leer was just a ball hawk. He went diving for the ball, and he was up in people's face. I mean, he was such a great defender. So was Sloan. Those two guys were at the hip, and they were just that was a great backcourt tandem back in the 70s. And they had a guy who I always liked was Bob Love. Was he was about 6'8". He was the forward that could just score and do different things with the ball. And I always liked Bob Love too. I like that Chicago Bull team. They never won a title, but they were in the playoffs every year, always pushing somebody to 7 games, whether it was Kareem's Milwaukee Bucks or somebody. They were always kind of just driving another team crazy with the defense and the physical play, which
it was,
was legendary. And all those guys played all the games too. When you look at, that's the point that always cracks me up, was when I look at those players back then, they were making by then they were making better money, but they played every game. Obviously they didn't take any games off.
Right. Yep.
None of them. And they all played hard and physical. And I mean, and it wasn't a 3-point. Back then they had no 3-point. At least the NBA did and ABA did. But the point is, the NBA just played. It was a very physical game that they could hand check and hold. And it was a tough game back then.
Yeah.
And I mean, they talk about if Stephen Curry played back then, would he be as good? I said, well, I don't know, but because he would just get so out physical back then, because they could hold, clutch him, hit him. I mean, you did not drive in. Back then, you did not drive down and try to make a layup over Bill Russell. He made you pay for it. They allowed the hard foul back then too.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a different game, physicality wise.
Well, even in the 80s. I mean, it was like
the 80s.
I mean, you couldn't do it.
No.
You didn't want to drive.
You had the bad boys.
Knicks,
you had the Pistons,
Knicks,
Lambeer,
Pistons,
right?
Even people don't, to a lesser degree, they don't think about these teams, but the teams in Washington, when you had
Unseld and Hayes,
and even after they left, when they had Jeff Rulin and those guys,
and Mahorn,
you would get beat up bad.
Rulin and Mahorn were they? Yeah,
you would get jacked up going down in there. So it was a different game. Even they had LeBron at 73 games average, and they said it probably would have been more until they started doing load management and having him out. He was injured some, but then just having him sitting out games to rest. And that the guy said, we're going to give a pass because he done played 21 seasons. He's really been out there all the time.
No,
but his average used to be higher.
Yeah, LeBron. One thing with LeBron, he plays.
Yeah,
LeBron, and they're saying this year they have a problem with LeBron because he's putting in too many minutes.
Yeah, I know.
And they said they got to cut back his minutes because
it's not going to happen. He keeps playing 40-something.
The problem you have with a guy like LeBron is he's so driven. He's competitive. He's not going to sit out. He's not going to sit out when it's a close game. He's going to be in there to win the game, which and so it's like it's counter. I know what they talk about, but the reality is these players, the great players, aren't sitting out and watching their minutes. They're going to play the game. And you never heard any of that. Jordan played every regular season game. Like, again, it was game 7. He hated to lose.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Any game.
Yeah. And I mean, any game, not even basketball, card game, any kind of game.
Parcheesi,
it didn't
backgammon.
matter. They said he was furious.
They said when he was in college, I think it was Buzz Peterson was his roommate. He says Jordan would go like, and then if you beat him, he wouldn't let you, he'd have to beat you. So if you were playing a game with him and you won, Jordan wouldn't let you leave. He needed to beat you before you left the room. You'd be up at 3 a.m. Jordan was still mad because he didn't win. Like he was like, it was, card game, any board game, risk, name it. He's just, he had to win at everything. Even I think his sister said that about him.
Yeah.
A couple of his family members said, he was just nuts. Like,
that's out there, but that's
just wired.
Yeah. Wired a different way.
He's just, these guys wired to win at all costs. No matter what you're playing.
And I knew Murphy and Allen Iverson got hit, but when they showed the highlights of the brutal shots these guys was taking.
Oh, yeah.
And they get right up and kept playing.
I went to a Cleveland game years ago. I saw Allen Iverson play in live.
Mm-hmm.
And Allen Iverson to me I always said, like, he's in a different sphere of time. He was faster than everybody.
Yeah.
He's like in a different cycle of time, if that's quite the time dimension. He was always faster than everybody. Going down the court, Allen Iverson would get the ball, drive into the basket, and score. He didn't take a lot of jump shots. I just remember him running up and down the court,
especially in his early.
In his younger days, he was so much faster than everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, significantly faster.
Yeah, with the ball.
With the ball, he would drive down and he would go by everybody like they were standing still.
And then when they showed his high school football, it's ridiculous how good he was.
Oh, I could only imagine.
He was a quarterback. And then they would make him play other positions, but was this guy ridiculous. So if you got time, you just pull up on YouTube Allen Iverson playing football and just look at the plays
what
this guy
he did.
made. It's unbelievable. And they said that, a lot of schools looked at him as far as that, but he stayed with basketball, but he was a phenomenal football player.
Yeah, he was an unbelievable. I could believe that.
Yeah. This is insane.
I mean, I could see him as a quarterback just driving. Nobody could tackle him.
Yeah.
He would go by everybody.
Yeah. It's just
like
crazy.
They were standing still.
Yeah. When they showed that and it said you could, look it up on your YouTube to ever just check it. It's unbelievable. That guy was a great football player.
And that's the funny part. Like I said, when you look at those old NBA players and football players, all of them, and I always marvel at the fact that they couldn't train during the off season because most of them had jobs, came into out of shape to play, but they played hard and they played all their games.
Right.
And nobody sat out. And there was, the sad part was there's no concussion protocol. I heard Brett Favre talk about it real quickly. He said that he talked to the doctor that discovered CTE for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't remember his name, and I should. But the doctor told him, he told the doctor every time I hit my head, my head was buzzing every time I got up. Like the doctor said, you had a concussion.
Yeah.
Every time you hit the ground and your head was buzzing or you heard a buzzing in your ear, you had suffered a concussion.
Yep.
So Favre says, I probably had, hundreds of concussions that I didn't know about.
I don't know it. That's right. Yeah. No question.
330-707-4202, Saturday Morning Sports Page. We'll come back. It's halftime of the show on Western Reserve Radio.
Youngstown, Warren, and Salem's local and national sports talk can be found on TuneIn and the Live 365 app at Western Reserve Radio. WRDB, The Scourge.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Saturday morning sports page coming right back at you. 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports on Western Reserve Radio. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark. We are starting the third quarter of the show. Talking, obviously, the first half of the show. We talked first quarter. We talked more of the NFL coaching carousel now that all 8 teams have filled their open positions. Dave, you brought up an excellent point. Rumor was that there could be potentially Andy Reid retiring if he does win the Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
I wonder how. I'm sure Vegas odds, they have odds on that, no doubt.
I'm sure they got something going.
My odds on everything. That would be not shocking. I would be a little surprised, but I tend to think as long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, I think he's going to stay there and coach. Yeah. I think he knows that unless there's something, maybe an underlying
that's what I was
reason,
else going on.
A personal reason that he might decide to turn. I mean, I believe Reid is 65 years old. I'll look it up. Yeah, he's in that ballpark of 60. Yeah. But anyway, he might be actually older than that. But bottom line is, yes, he is. He's 65 years old. Mm-hmm. So he'll be 66 in March of this year. So he turned 66 March 19th he was born March 19th of 58. So he will be 66 years old in March of this year. So is that enough to basically, make him decide he'll retire and get out?
Right.
I don't know yet. We'll have to wait that one out and see what he decides to do. But if he does retire, then that I think you're going to go back to, is Belichick the guy that, because I think Belichick's name is going to hang out there.
Yeah.
I think one problem with Belichick is when Belichick was hired, you have to go back many years now. Over 20 years he started, and Kraft was not a meddling owner, and Kraft gave him pretty much the keys to the castle, sort of to speak. And I think that, Bill could make the decisions and make the calls, but he had some pretty good people around him that helped him with the offensive and defensive personnel. And those folks I think one of the guys' name was, I have to look it up, but I think it was George Adams, or Adams was his name. He was like his right-hand man, and then he retired. And it seems since he left, Belichick's been struggling with the personnel as far as drafting good personnel to come in and play. But what problem also I think is what is holding Belichick back from getting an NFL job is he wants full control, and in this day and age, these owners are not giving you full control.
That was another thing in Atlanta because he wanted that.
He wanted
and
full.
They wasn't getting rid of
Rich
Terry
McKay,
Terry Fontenot, I think it was.
Yeah,
Somebody
Fontenot,
wasn't
right.
getting rid of those guys.
No.
Those guys have done a good job in their area.
Right.
It's just been, they just said Arthur Smith was just like I don't know, stiff type guy that didn't bring that enthusiasm to the players. And I used to wonder, I looked at their roster overall. Yeah, they definitely got to upgrade the quarterback position. But how do you draft a guy, fourth pick, I think it was, Bijan Robinson, and in some games, he would carry the ball 3 times. He wouldn't even play him. He'd have him out, flanked out as a receiver, as a decoys all during the game. And they said that's the thing that they know Raheem Morris is not going to take a talent like that and allow him to be doing. They're going to have that guy, and he may have, or Kyle Pitts. We've seen how good Kyle Pitts was at Florida. They don't even isolate him on. You can't tell me you couldn't isolate him on what linebacker's going to cover Kyle Pitts?
None. Nobody.
The guy is like a wide receiver.
He's got a tight end body, but he moves like a wide receiver and the speed of a wide receiver.
Don't even use. They started using some at the end this year, and he was making all kind of touchdowns. This is stuff that he could have been doing. But Arthur Smith was like just not using the talent that he has. So I just think that's Belichick though wanted to take over everything.
See,
and they're not gonna. That's just most of these organizations not doing that.
You have the billionaire owners. Some billionaire owners, like Jerry Jones, wants to run the team. Some owners will at least want to have a say in what goes, but they want a GM, they want a president, they want other people involved.
Right.
They just, they're not comfortable listening to just one person. It's the reality. They want to have other hands in the pie and
so
say,
you get a collective answer.
Right. I want a collective. I don't want it coming from one person. I want 3 people to give me the best. I want 3 people, good football people, get together and make a decision, then come to me, not one guy come to me.
Yep.
And I think Belichick's been struggling. I mean, the reality when you look at Belichick's record with Tom Brady, it's not good. Since Tom Brady left New England, he made the playoffs once and then had 2 miserable seasons after that. And then in essence, to the most part, he had Mac Jones, a young quarterback who did pretty good under McDaniel and got in the playoffs. The next year, you have Matt Patricia, Joe Judge be co-offensive coordinators, which they're not, but Belichick made him that. And then Mac Jones just had a terrible season. And you could see he lost any confidence, and he had problems relating to those 2 coaches.
Right.
And now this year, I don't even know if, Mac Jones played horrible. He lost his job to Zappy.
Yeah.
So New England really didn't have a quarterback. And that's going to be the question. What are they going to do with this upcoming draft? So,
yeah. And they said, I was reading something, might have been Boston Globe, something on the internet where they said that, talking about Mac Jones, they said that troubling season with Judge and Patricia, what was so troubling about it is they would come up sometime with something and Belichick would interject and say, no, we're going to do this. And it'd be something they done went over for almost an entire week and they'll switch it.
At the last.
Like on a Thursday and or a Friday right before Sunday's game. And it'd be so much turmoil and confusion that he was confused. And
that could
was
be.
I was reading that. They said there was a lot of things that interfere with Max Jones' development, and it wasn't just putting those two guys and
But it was
two guys that did it
Belichick changing.
because they were loyal to him.
Right.
But they both wasn't really comfortable.
Well, they
with
said
that.
the same thing this year with Bill O'Brien. To your point,
Yeah.
it seems to be a pattern with Belichick is Bill O'Brien had a game plan out and he's the offensive guy,
Yeah.
but Belichick would override him a lot.
So I believe that was definitely going. Well, we know if he went over Bill O'Brien's head,
Right.
who, like you said, really knows.
He knows the offense that it was going on.
You know what's going on
with
with
Judge
the
and
others.
Patricia.
Yeah, for sure, because they're not as stalwart
No.
that he is, that O'Brien is on offense.
So that's his side of the ball.
That's why O'Brien left. Because it made me wonder, why would this guy come back and then I'm out of here? You know? And I think, didn't he leave before Belichick was let go?
I think he did.
Yeah, he left before it.
Yeah, I think he had his 1 year and he was done. And I think you won't never, that's obviously speculation on our part, but I think you're right. We don't, but I think that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
The offense was an absolute mitigated disaster. And I think the thing is you need to understand Belichick's got a great history, but if you're an NFL owner, you're looking at what have you done lately?
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at Bill Belichick's record without Tom Brady, especially these last 2 years, it has not been good. And this year, actually, he's got worse every year. Since Brady left, the team has disintegrated offensively every year. It's gone downhill. He's on a steady downward slide since Brady left.
Yeah.
So when you come into my office and you say, I want full control of your team, I'm Bill Belichick. I've got all these Super Bowls and I want to run the team and I don't want any, I want to be the guy and I don't need to hear a GM or a president of football operations tell me I'm doing something wrong. I want all say. Yeah, you have to sit back and say, well, okay, Bill, here, I'll be the billionaire owner. Said, yeah, Bill, that sounds great. But when I look at your last 3 years without Tom Brady, you've got worse every year. Your offenses looked horrible. Worse, it's gotten worse every year.
Right.
So I know you're a great coach and you've got these Super Bowl rings and it's great, but I need, your last 3 years are not impressive, especially your last 2 years have been bad years. I can't turn everything over to you and say, here, run my team based on what I know today.
Yeah.
Which is your 2 years offensively, your team has been bad.
Yeah.
So
and it's you gotta, yes, he's a great coach. I can't take anything
No,
from
no,
him.
no.
But I am gonna say this though. He's chasing, who's it?
Shula.
Okay, let's look at Shula for just a second. Shula had Unitas, right?
Right.
Okay, but when Unitas was hurt, he had
Earl Morrall.
Okay. So you say, look at the quarterbacks he connected to. Well, yeah, he had Dan Marino. But you know what? Don Shula went to the Super Bowl with David Woodley.
Right, in the strike year, 1982. And
David
lost,
Woodley,
right.
and I'm not saying this is nothing against David Woodley,
Right.
but I'm saying
No,
he
he
went to the Super Bowl with David Woodley at quarterback. That lets you know what type of coach this is. That
Right.
he took whoever and be able to filtrate them into the system and be able to win.
Right.
I'm trying to think of another guy he had that they got far in the playoffs, but they lost. I can't think of the guy's
Was it
name.
Don Strock?
No, not the back. He wasn't a backup. This guy was a starter, even though he did. He won with Don Strock. You can bring him up. But it's another guy. He used to wear number, I don't know why I want to think it was number 9.
Matt Moore?
No, not Matt Moore.
Because he did pretty good
He
with
did
Matt
good
Moore.
too. He did good with him too. I can't think of this guy's name. I can't think of his name right now, but
we'll get you.
It was
we'll
back
figure it
around
out.
around the Woodley time, maybe right after.
Right,
something.
the 80s.
Yeah, but he was able to win with these guys.
Right.
It shows you it didn't matter who he plugged in. They followed what he had, and they were still able to win. That tells me a lot about the flexibility and the ability to relate with his players and win football games.
And that's a good point.
You had Brady. Brady left, and it went right off the cliff.
And that's that's the problem you always have with Belichick. And again, that's the elephant in the proverbial room here is you have to look at, here comes a guy in my office interviewing for a job who's a Hall of Fame coach. But when I look at his last 3 years, they've been a steadily decline offensively, and this guy wants full control of my team. And when I look at the way he's drafted the last 5 years, it has not been good. He's not done well with the draft, and he's not
Right.
really drafted, good offensive players. His defensive side of the ball has been fantastic because he's a genius defensively.
Yeah.
But the offensive side of the ball and the fact that he wants control of my whole team, and then it's just like, what am I going to do? Then the GM and my president of football operations, they have no say on what this guy's doing
Right.
because he's going to want to run everything. And I'm just looking at his last 3 years, and it's been a steadily decline. And last year, the team was horrendous offensively. They were just an awful team. They couldn't watch. They had no quarterback. They struggled offensively. They were a bad football team. And this guy wants to come over and run my team. You're like, and I think that's what I think turned a lot of people off with Belichick is the fact that, and he's 72 years old and he looks like he's a little bit out of touch with reality.
Yeah, at times it
At
does.
times it looks like, can he relate? And then you get in, see the thing you always inherently, all this stuff about relating the players. If you're winning, that's not a problem. If Bill Belichick was going out and that's all the problem. He wouldn't be leaving if he was winning and getting far into the playoffs. Kraft would let him alone. But Kraft saw where the team was going. He knew it was time to cut bait, and Brady was long gone, and Belichick's struggling without Brady. But when you take a player like a coach like Belichick, and you see what he's been doing for me lately, it doesn't look good.
Right. Well, I actually think relating to the players and winning actually go hand in hand.
It usually does.
Because if you can't relate to your players, you're not going to win. I mean, you're going to lose them. So I believe it's hand in hand, and it lets me know that he had a great staff around him. When you mentioned just other people around him, I think his coaching staff had a lot to do with keeping people in line. And then you had a great quarterback who the guys loved, and they were able to, even if stuff didn't seem right, we're here with Tom. And these guys played.
Brady was almost like a quasi coach,
right?
In that all the players saw, they say this time and time again, Brady had so much respect from all of the players because of his work ethic. He studied, he helped them. He would talk to them at all times, talk about plays, talk about formations, talk about, just constant. Brady was like helping them out and here's the guy, and then this is what one of the analysts said about Brady. Maybe it was Mangini said the thing with Brady was he played like every season he came in, he would approach it like we lost. We didn't do good. We need to improve. And he had that drive to like work hard every year because we needed to get better. We weren't that good last year, even though he won a Super Bowl, but he approached every season like, boy, you know what? We've got to play better. We're still not that good. And he worked his butt off to play better and help all the players. That's why the players love Tom Brady, is because he was constantly helping them out, learning plays, make sure they're in the formations, doing the right thing. But he was just such the ultimate team player. And that's why all the players loved him, is because he was the other end of standoffish.
Yeah.
He was never that way. He never acted like, hey, I'm Tom Brady, I'm better than you. No, I'm Tom Brady, I got to help you out. We got to win. And just 180 degrees of constant work, help.
And that's the thing that, that helps, because it had to be something going on like that. It was because when Gerard Mayo got the job at his press conference, what did he say? We're going to do things completely different than it have been done.
Right. What does that tell you?
It's letting me know that stuff wasn't right. He wasn't in agreement with what was going on. And a lot of times they was such a veteran-laden team with a guy like Tom Brady, with guys like the linebacker Highsmith on defense.
Right.
You had all these guys, even the what's the Hall of Famer name? The lineman.
Seymour.
You got all these type of guys that would keep that
Yeah.
continuity and glue together. That maybe they didn't like the Patriot way, but because of these guys, they stuck together and made it. When you came into with the younger group, and now you got a younger football team, and guys are not this Patriot way got to change. You got to change something, and it wasn't. And this is what he wants. He wants a whole new culture, because that's why sometimes you had big time players that back when Tom was playing would come to the Patriots.
Right.
When Tom left, guys did not want to come.
No, you're right. I mean,
They just didn't. I'm not going there.
They didn't come, and they weren't winning. And I
Yeah.
think the word out was that, the team's a different team without Brady.
Yeah.
And you just don't have the same.
Yep, because he would get you through it. He would get you through whatever, controversy or whatever was going on. And
and I think that's a good point. I always think maybe Brady was the glue that kept it together.
Yeah.
To a large extent.
Yep. And that's why I said even better when they had those veterans, when they had the Seymours, like I said, and the Junior Seau's and all them guys there, they would keep that continuity perfect. They could just go right on and everything would go well. But as time went, and then the last linchpeg to it was Tom Brady, and once he was gone, downhill they went.
And they lost
rapidly.
McDaniel for the the offensive coordinator left.
It was done.
And
was
after
done.
he left, that offense just came to a screeching halt. They were terrible.
Yeah.
After
I
that,
mean, horrible.
horrible. That offense hit a brick wall, and they just disintegrated. And they had no offense for pretty much 2 years. And this past year was an unmitigated
If
disaster.
they had an offense,
if they had any kind of
offense,
he
they'd
still
been
had
in the
a great
playoffs.
defense.
They'd have been in the playoffs.
They would have made the playoffs with an offense this year.
Oh yeah, there's no question in my
Because
mind.
the defense was stout, played good, but that's Belichick's side of the ball. And Gerard Mayo was also the defensive, I believe, the coordinator
Yep.
at the time. So he had that together.
Right.
But the offensive side of the ball was an unmitigated disaster. And the reality is, I think that's what probably kept Belichick from really getting these jobs. And I mean, the reality is, people understand the guy, bottom line, being as old as he is, he's 71, he'll be 72 in April. And people just looked at him and said, based on your last couple of years, I'm not going to give you the keys to the car and let you run the team, because you obviously can't do it based on your last 2 years especially without Tom Brady. And again, here's the other thing. These coaches historically don't do that anyway. Now, the only person that I would say that got hired in this group that probably has a lot of freedom and can help, but I think is Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Harbaugh's got a lot of flexibility with with getting players, but he still has a GM and will work with the confines of the team. And I think the San Diego Chargers, who we still call the LA, but we call them the San Diego Chargers anyway. I think after we looked at their losses last year, less than 7 games, what is it, 7 losses by less than 7 games, 7 points, I mean.
Yeah.
I'll get a real number. But again, we looked at that last week. You could see he can have them a playoff team.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh can have them in the playoffs next
A couple
year.
of little things change, and they can, a lot of things that could happen for them.
Yeah. When you look at those losses they had, one score or less, they win 6 or 7 games like that, they're in the playoffs.
And I'm curious to see how things stay in Denver too, because they gave the keys to Peyton out there.
He's the guy.
They letting him do everything, and I don't know if that's going to work or not. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, you can see some things that look good, but but you do hear complaints about some other things. So these are different players today. And I'm not going to say anything because just the world in general is different than years ago.
Well,
so
here's bringing up Denver. Denver, we talked about this a little bit. It says here, if the Broncos release Russell Wilson before March 17th, he would have a dead money cap hit of $85 million in 2024. Okay. If they designate his release as a post June 1st release, the cap hit would be spread over 2 years. 35 million in 2024 and we'll call it 49.6 million in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So
and he's probably not going to redo his contract, I'm sure.
He's not.
Right.
So Denver is also projected to be $18 million over the salary cap in 2024. So Russell Wilson's expected release, and that's in parentheses, expected, which we know it will be, all probability, will complicate their cap situation even more, assuming the Broncos designate a post June 1st cut, because they could spread that cap over 2 years. It says, here are Russell Wilson's pending dead money cap hits and net savings through 2026. And this is from Over the Cap. So they're kind of right now in cap. They've got themselves in cap jail, I'll refer to it as.
This is my problem with the Denver Broncos. Not really Peyton. Peyton has a certain way that he coaches. Drew Brees was a guy that was a timing quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Bam, 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 it's on time. That was him. Okay. You hired him knowing that's the type of quarterback that he uses.
And Russell Wilson's.
Wilson is a off-platform quarterback. He makes stuff happen. Why aren't you searching in your coaching search for a top-flight coach that teaches or coaches that way? Why would you get? I understand the splash, but they don't mix. And the only reason I'm saying that, you already gave the money to Russell Wilson. Now you need to get a coach that's coaching in the way in which he plays, which is off platform. I don't get it. And you get this guy who wants. That's why they got in shouting matches. Now that it came out, I love finding out this stuff. But they said it used to be in shouting matches. You see Peyton going off on Russell. Yeah. Russell done said some things to him behind. He tried not to show his coach up, but then said something. That's not how Russell Wilson plays. He tried to do it sometime, but that is not him. On time stuff. He was always improvising, and running the football. So that's the type of thing. And for him to be successful, if you're going to pay that type of money, I want that guy to be successful. I don't care if you're saying everything's to run. No, I'm looking at a business. I want to win. My quarterback, we already know the league is quarterback driven. So my quarterback has to be successful. So I got to get somebody that's conducive for him to be successful. It's not going to be in that. Now you're going to get rid of this guy. Now you're going to be like 60-something million over the cap.
Yeah, they've got.
What you going to be able to do then?
And that's the thing with. First of all, the contract they gave him was people complain about Deshaun Watson's contract with Cleveland because they can't do it. They can't move Russell Wilson not Russell Wilson. Deshaun Watson is going to be a Cleveland Brown for, I believe, at least 2 more years. They think the final year they could do something. The cap hit won't be brutal, but the first 2 more years they've got Deshaun Watson. I don't care if what they do. Quarterback,
they're not going to get rid of him. They said they could do something with the money. I forgot how I was reading that. Barry could do some things.
He's there for 2 years.
He's there for 2 years
because the dead cap hit is on. You couldn't almost. I don't know how you feel the football team with the dead cap money that you would suffer from Deshaun Watson cutting him. So he's there. Russell Wilson's not quite at that level, but he's kind of close to that level. Yeah. They're in cap jail anyway. And bottom line is now with trying to get rid of him and the cap hit they're going to take, they've got to rearrange the roster significantly in order to get under that cap.
Yeah.
So we'll see how Denver navigates. The other question is going to be, where does Russell Wilson end up? Does he end up on a roster next year? He's 35 years old. Depending on money, teams may not want him because depending on, again, they don't want to give him or how much of that contract they have to assume. Do they really want to tie it to Russell Wilson?
Well, I don't think they had to do anything with that contract unless he's traded, right? I don't think that contract.
If they cut him, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think
if they cut him, I think then
new team is not obligated
That's
to that
something
contract.
we'll have to look out. Yeah.
They're not obligated to that.
Yeah.
You know.
So he doesn't look, obviously, then he's not tradable because no one wants that contract.
Yeah, nobody wants that contract, but he gets cut.
Then he might be
somebody's
viable.
Somebody's getting him in.
Third quarter is in the books. We'll start the fourth quarter. Talk more quarterbacks in the NFL on Saturday Morning Sports Page.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
If you want to stay on top of your health, one simple thing to do
is take the pledge to go and get screened for the cancers that might affect you.
So stand up to cancer and take a pledge at GetScreenedNow.org.
It only takes a minute to take care of yourself, and nothing rhymes with poor.
Talk to your doctor about your health and screenings that are right for you.
Saturday Morning Sports Page, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark. Fourth quarter of the show, 330-707-4202. The phone lines are open if you want to get in and talk sports. Saturday Morning Sports Page. Talked a lot about Russell Wilson. Where does he end up? Obviously, they can't trade him unless there's a team out there that wants that contract. But I don't think anybody wants a 35-year-old quarterback who will be 36 next year.
Yeah.
And paying him that kind of money.
No.
Not with the other thing out there too, is you have this class of quarterbacks coming out of college.
Yeah.
This is a very deep college draft class for quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different quarterbacks. What will happen is now you've got Justin Fields out there with the Bears, and everybody is just waiting. And this is going to be talked about for 4 months.
Oh, yeah.
At least until the draft gets here. What do the Chicago Bears do? Now, they did not hire Cliff Kingsbury.
No.
But the Raiders did.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. If it's possible, who knows? What do you think? Do you think maybe the Raiders are going to make a move to get up in the draft?
I think so anyway. I think they got.
Would they go? See, in theirs,
is it
are they
him?
going to go to Caleb Williams?
Or is they going to go to Jaden Daniels? I don't know.
I don't know.
But I think they're going to try.
I think
to
so.
See if they're going to look through possibilities. I don't think they want to give Devontae Adams up.
No.
I don't think they want to do that.
No.
But something tell me that those teams might ask for him. But then again, they may not, because he's not old. He'll be 30. He's got a decent contract. They might not want to deal with that. So they might ask for some draft picks and some of their younger talent, and it's got to see what they can do. But I do think they're going to try to, if they can, because they was trying to do it. They were going to do it, and they got turned down. They was trying to move up to get Stroud last year, and I didn't know that was going on. They were trying hard, all kind of thing. In the last minute, the deal fell through for them to move up. I think they was trying to deal with Carolina, somebody to get all the way to the first pick. Well, it might have been Chicago, because Chicago had it last year too, correct? Was it Chicago at first? And they traded it?
Yes.
To get Carolina to
Carolina moved up.
And the Raiders was trying to negotiate with Chicago, and it fell through at the end because they was trying to get up there to actually take
Probably
CJ Stroud.
Stroud.
Oh, that's what they wanted.
They wanted Stroud.
They wanted Stroud. And the deal fell through. And when it fell through, the Carolina deal went through. And that's where they lost out. So do I think they would try it again? Yeah, I sure do. I think they will try again. And I think they'll be trying to figure out which one. Now, I'm sure Kingsbury will be pushing for Caleb Williams because he doesn't work with him, which makes sense.
Well, that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Right.
That's
what I was. I was thinking the same thing.
But it's going to be some talk because Antonio Pierce going to be like, "Hey,
right,
me and Marvin Lewis knows we recruited Jaden Daniels, so it's going to be a big talk."
See, that's going to be the interesting.
That's going to be interesting.
What will play out coming up to this draft is going to be a lot of these stories out there,
right?
But I would not be surprised if the Raiders make some kind of move draft day or
they got to get a quarterback though.
Right. They know they got to get a quarterback. The guy they have, kid from Purdue, is a solid.
I keep him.
I keep him as a great backup.
Yeah.
Let him, learn, compete, play. But they are looking at this class of quarterbacks, and they're thinking either, a Jaden Daniels, or do you go to Caleb Williams?
It's going to be one of them.
Go to Chicago. Now,
I even think if anything falls through, I still think Fields is in the question that they might try to get him to.
And then you can't. That's the other. See, he's the other wild card. There are people out there that basically think Fields is improving and will get to be a good quarterback, and especially if he gets the right system and right offensive coordinator, he can be a better quarterback than he already is. Now, I know, as you said, he has a problem with the looking off the receivers and the coverages, but as you know and I know, there's always a coordinator with his athletic ability that says, I can make him better, I can fix him, I can help his weaknesses.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure that, like, there are coordinators and head coaches out there that see Justin Fields and look at what they currently have as quarterback and saying, I want that guy, like Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's the other place
That's another
he
place he might go. I mean,
Atlanta.
you can't just. I mean, he holds the ball too long. He's not reading all his
Not
reads.
always, but
he's too much of a talent just to say, get out of the league.
No.
There's no way he's getting out of the league.
And he's still under the rookie contract.
Yeah, and he's still young. Somebody's gotta click somewhere with somebody. And if it does, it could be problems if it click. But they got to make it friendly. Look at what they did with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Made it friendly. Now he's became a good passer.
Right.
When need, but a tough running game.
Right.
Still allow him to run.
Right.
Legs is too valuable not to. Same thing. I would do the same thing that Baltimore does with Lamar Jackson. My gear situation for Fields be the same way. There's no way I'm allowing that guy with that running ability just to be a drop back passer. I want him to be involved with RPOs, everything.
I think and here's the reality is the way the game's evolved, you need a quarterback that can move in the pocket. The way the defenses are now structured, the way the offensive line seem to struggle protecting the passers, you really need a quarterback that's kind of a guy that can make plays with his leg, get out, move around.
I want an off-platform guy. That's why I want him.
And that's why he's very athletic. He's big. He's 6'3", 6'4", 230. He's a big kid. Justin Fields is a big player, and he can move. He's got the athletic ability.
Yeah.
And I think there's people out there, coordinators and head coaches that would love to have him because they know
you got to do it.
he's got areas to improve upon, but they figure we can work with him and work on his areas to improve, but the overall package is pretty good and we can make him better. And there's always offensive coordinators and coaches out there that say, I know what we have. I can make him a better quarterback because he's got these other skills involved.
And that's why they can't make Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels be drop back pocket pass.
No, they're not. That's not their forte.
Caleb Williams is off schedule type guy.
You
got to have him like that. And he is successful. He's on the run. That's what you need, a guy like that. And Kingsbury like that. He had Murray.
Them
the kind of guys he's like. So I know Fields being all those quarterbacks.
Yeah,
will
that's
really
a
work
good
with him.
point. Fields could end up being a Raider.
All of them work for Kingsbury. That's the type of stuff he likes.
Or they move up in the draft.
Yeah.
Or they make a move
try that.
to get Fields. And if they get him, I think if they can get him for a second rounder, they're going to do it.
I mean, you got to. If you see you can't get up in the draft and get that young guy, hasn't been exposed to the NFL yet.
But see, the thing you have, here's an advantage, I think, with Fields that may make him a little bit more attractive than a kid coming out of the draft, a younger player, is because the younger player isn't going to develop. Fields has got 3 years of playing. You got 3 years of film. You can see him, what he's done in NFL. He knows defense, the NFL defenses. So you think, okay, if you're a GM and you're making decisions here, you're thinking, okay, the quarterbacks, if we can't move that far up in the draft, but I can get a Justin Fields, say, with a second rounder.
Oh, yeah, if I can't move up.
And I can't move up.
But if I could move up, I'm getting the other guy.
Maybe I get the other guy.
Yeah,
but
it wouldn't even be maybe for me.
But if you've got Justin Fields, but you see, the thing is you've got the thing with the college quarterback, it's always the crapshoot.
Yeah,
there's always that
right.
dice that the guy just might not, the game doesn't transfer over. Now, I tend to think, though, these younger guys that move around a lot do better just because the league has evolved to that. You need a quarterback that can move.
Yeah.
So the Daniels and the Caleb Williams are, I think, a little bit more attractive. Drake May's more of a classic drop back guy, but good quarterback. But the point is,
a little athletic too,
and
but
he's
not
athletic
those
enough,
guys.
but he's not those guys.
Not Fields
and
or
if
Daniels or any of those.
You watch the game today, you want more of an athletic quarterback because we watch offensive line play. It seems like teams struggle with it because the defensive linebackers and safeties are so much quicker and faster in the blitz packages they throw. You need a guy that can kind of move around and make adjustments. So I guess that's the thing. You could see Justin Fields does it as a GM, but you've got to see what you can do. Well, how much do you want to move up? Now, granted, the advantage to getting a Caleb Williams and a Jaden Daniels is the contract starts up. You get the rookie contract.
Right.
Justin Fields, though, the only thing you have with Justin Fields that you get him, you're going to have to make a decision. Ultimately, I got to pay
Right
the
away.
guy right
Yeah.
away. You got to either I
And
guess you could
that's why I
either
said
give him
that.
the 5th-year option and,
you
and
could do that.
pay him. Yeah, give him a 5th-year option, and then you might do the 5th-year option because then at least you have a flexibility. If he doesn't work out, you're not into it. You don't want to give him the big fat contract right away.
See, GMs look at a guy, if he's a transcending athlete
Right.
and player, you can see he's one of those guys that, hey, you better not pass on that.
Right.
You got to take him if you can get him. If you can move up and you know you can, I'm going after those guys. But if it's some struggle or you're trying to take some of my top players, I want Devontae, I want Max Crosby.
No.
I'm not doing that.
See,
now I might have to settle for Fields, but I'm definitely going for the other guys.
You're
first.
going for the two.
Oh yeah,
right.
I'm going for those guys.
That's the
But
crapshoot here. Is the GM has to make the ultimate decision. Can they move up? How much do they have to give to move up?
Well, that's the key because
And
that's
that's
the
the
thing. You got to think this is a GM. Okay, you got 3 years to see will Caleb work? Will
Right.
Jaden, you got 1
with Justin.
Yeah, and
right.
if he doesn't work,
no, then
now
you're
you're
right.
jacked up. You done missed out on these guys. You took him. You're not doing anything. More than likely, you're probably on the street because now you done lost your job because you allowed 2 guys to
go by.
and you could have got there. Now, if you can't get there, it's not their fault. Like you said, they want too much and you can't move up. you got to find out
Because you
who
might
settle
be in
for.
competition, and that's the key. I guess
And
the thing is,
even before Fields, I'm gonna look for Kirk Cousins first, maybe if he's healed from that Achilles.
yeah, he's coming off the Achilles, and
Yeah.
he's older though.
Yeah, and he's older. And if I can see I can do that,
Well, you might get him
in
for
a couple years. If I gotta look, but
and
I want
I
to look at
believe Kirk Cousins is a free agent, correct?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So you
So
can get a 3-year contract out of him, and he can play steady if he's healthy. He can play steady. Then I look at the draft thing of what's coming up in the next couple years.
they believe speculation is out there. Is Kirk Cousins? Rumor is Denver. That's the quarterback
Yeah,
Peyton wants because
but that
he
will work for him.
is his system.
Yeah, it'll work for him.
Kirk Cousins is
On time,
on
boom, boom,
measured
boom.
quarterback,
Yeah.
control, and great, very coachable, but he fits
Yep.
Peyton's system. And the
Yep.
word or the rumor is, but how do they figure that out with their cap? That might be the
That's
problem.
going to be interesting
because
they're all strapped.
they got themselves in cap jail with Russell Wilson's contract. But to me, my experience says when we say that, it always seems like somehow, some way, they make something work.
I know.
They go.
And if they do, that's who you keep
They
ever on
always
your
play
staff.
the deal with the money. This guy's contract gets moved, blah, 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 blah. And they do this, and all of a sudden, we got the money.
Now, if they
Let's
know
sign Kirk Cousins.
guys want to win, sometimes guys come into the office and say, hey, reduce mine. Can you put it over a certain amount of years?
Right.
And then they create money.
Cousins comes in and says, I want to play for you. I'll give you a team-friendly contract. Spread the money out however they play with the bonus. Sometimes they do it with guaranteed bonus money. And they do all this elaborate things. Cousins
Believe me,
comes in.
They'll find a way.
And right. At the end of the deal, the capologist people figure it out.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins right now is 35 years old. He will be 36 before the start of next season.
It will work for his team.
Regular season.
But I look for the Raiders to have, I want Aiden O'Connell to stay there, but a new quarterback, and I look for them they have to be aggressive. They got to try to get the guy, or you go get Fields. You got to.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you're the Raiders.
Anybody else I would want. I had to really think about it, but we talk about Fields, who we know he's on that rookie contract. It's at the end. They may get rid of him. He'll be a part of them getting rid of him. But this is the thing, though. If it's not the Raiders moving up, okay, it's going to be somebody else. So where are they sending, if they're trading that pick or something, or I just think they're going to trade Justin Fields. If they know they're going to take Caleb or
Drake
whoever.
May,
Drake
or
May.
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, they might. You're right. But what you just said might be one of them for us. All of a sudden, it is Drake May.
There's 3 guys, we think.
Yeah. What then somebody? Oh, now this is another. I don't want to leave him out. If his medical is good, they're already talked. They said it down at the Senior Bowl. Some of the scouts, and it was on yesterday. I was listening to the guy. He said he talked to one guy that's executive with the Raiders. If his medical can, and he's there, if Michael Penix is there at number 13,
and he might be,
they might take him if his medical looks right.
There's a possibility
because of he has the way he throws the football. They loving it. He would be the guy. Now, Bo Nix, I don't know what I got to look on to find out what his size is, but they said when he went to the Senior Bowl and they measured him, the thing that's on the show what his height is. So whatever you find out what this says, they found out he's 2 inches shorter than whatever that says. I don't know what it is. I meant to look it up yesterday. They never said on the show. I'm listening to it. If they didn't say what
they have him as 6'2".
So he's 6 foot.
He's 6 foot 217 is the weight they listed.
They said he was 2 inches shorter than what the program thing says. So if it's saying he's 6'2", he's 6 foot. That changes things.
No, it does.
It changes
and
things.
They do the hand size too.
Yeah,
so
now that is why the Raiders also like Penix. 10 inches
at the hand size.
10 7/8. They said
That's
that
that's
hand
a
is
big hand.
gigantic. That's why he can control the
Yeah,
ball
that
so
ball and the way
easily
he
and let it go.
spins it when he releases it.
They said all it is that players got to get used to it because he's a left-handed
Right.
passer.
That's the
So they talked Boomer Esiason's down
Right.
there now because he said I want to talk because he loves going to see the
Boomer was
the
lefty.
left-handed. Yeah, and they said this guy, he has more zip than any of them. To could far as from that side of the ball. If he drops and the medical is good, I think the Raiders will take him. But it still puts him in a. Well, I don't know. Do you start that guy or you go out with? No, you don't start him. Go ahead with Aiden O'Connell. I guess you got to do that unless you find another veteran and let him learn. Don't throw him to the wolves right away and ruin him.
That's going to be the question. The question's basically going to be Justin Fields' contract. He's entering in the last year of the rookie deal. Then the debate's going to be what do they do with that 5th year?
Yeah.
And that's the question here. Do they pick it up? I believe the 5th year option has a price tag of $25 million, in the range of $25 million. It's all guaranteed then too. So that all goes against
That's for
Justin Fields. If you pick up the 5th year option, he gets a guaranteed in a range of $25 million. All of it is guaranteed under the 5th year deal.
Okay.
So you have him on the 4th year of the rookie deal if you get him. And then if you decide, hey,
he did okay.
He did
we're gonna-
okay.
we'll
We'll
pay.
pick up that 5th year option.
He's $25 million.
And then you got to give him 25 all guaranteed. And then you work on the long-term deal with him.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility if he ends up being traded, or if he stays with Chicago, then they have to make that decision.
Right.
So the only thing with Justin Fields, where he ends up, the team has to decide what they want to do. Jordan Love's contract will be coming up, and they're already talking about working out the contract that was earlier. I overheard.
Yeah.
The one guy for the Packers, the one the GM.
Oh yeah. Start with a G.
Yeah. Brian Gooden.
Gutekunst.
Yeah, that's it. Gutekunst said that they're going to be working on a long-term deal with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
So he's going to get paid. They're going to figure, because they're now letting him go now after all these years invested in. He signed a very good deal with them, a contract extension, and now they have to get him signed up long-term, which he'll probably see he'll get one of these 165-year deals.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to
with
get
the money, they play it around, but he'll end up getting the contract deal that, pretty much is standard. And then the other question is going to be, we'll be talking about this in many weeks to come, but what do the Cowboys do with Dak Prescott? And what kind of money do they plan on giving him?
Yeah. I think they're not going to get rid of him.
I think he's there.
Yeah, I think Jerry's going to take care of him. So
what the question is, they have to decide on what are they going to do with his money, as far as re-signing him now, because I believe he looks like, he's in the last year of his contract deal with a base salary of $29 million. So yearly cash is $34 million. So with what these guys are getting paid today, what are they going to do with Dak Prescott going into next year?
Yeah. Yeah. And he seems like he's pretty calm about it.
But he is.
Yeah.
They will get,
Yeah, they'll get it done. He's a company guy. So he'll just do whatever.
He's not real aggressive. He's not going to be screaming and yelling. He gets it. And he's probably going to ultimately end up signing another deal. And Jerry will get with him.
Yep.
And he's not going anywhere, even though there's Cowboy fans thinking about they should draft a quarterback and move on from him. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think he will be your quarterback, and Jerry will figure it out and give him a good contract, and he'll be agreeable, and they'll work out 40. I wouldn't veg. He'll probably get like 40 million or 45 million.
Well, they better go ahead, and if they're going to get in free agency, it's the talk of them getting Derrick Henry, and they should, because if you keep him Pollard, I don't know if they re-sign him. I think he becomes a free agent.
Yeah, I believe he's a free agent.
But if you re-sign him, you can, because that's the only way Pollard is going to be real good. They needed to keep Zeke, because if they did, Pollard is better when you got that two-headed monster.
Right.
Not he's the full guy. He's
No,
the
he's
full load.
right. He needs help.
Too much.
He's not the primary guy.
No,
he can't be. He doesn't have physicality. He needs to be like a dual threat. You bring in the other guy that could shoulder the load, but he's good.
Yeah,
with
and
help.
You still
he
give him
could still
his
get
carries,
good production.
'cause he produced with Zeke. Zeke 13 carries. He might have got 17.
Right,
and he put up big numbers. But when you get
you can't give
where
him
he's getting
25,
30 carries. That's
you
not
can't
him.
do that. Rumor is, or at least one thing that I saw a quick article that Jim Harbaugh, being the coach, is supposedly interested in Saquon Barkley for the New York Giants. He likes Saquon Barkley a lot.
Yep.
And is looking at him, and I don't know if they have cap issues out there. They have to figure out.
They'll figure it out.
But they'll figure it out if they can get him. And I believe he is a free agent.
Yep.
So the Giants may not have him, or the Giants have to turn around and make a decision to sign him, and be interesting to see where ultimately that falls. But if he will be a very attractive free agent, Saquon Barkley's going somewhere.
Yeah. And the Chargers will be after him because Austin Eckler is a free agent too.
Right.
So he may change addresses. So it's just it's going to be interesting.
I won't be surprised. In fact, I will be surprised if the Chargers are not a playoff team. I think Jim Harbaugh will have them in the playoffs his first year. I don't think that's a reach at all. Based on Jim Harbaugh's history on building teams, especially
go by his history,
NFL, what he did with
that's a serious loaded conference.
Yep.
I mean, division.
It's a division's loaded. But when you look at their losses last year, if Jim Harbaugh coached that team last year, I think he would have got that team in the playoffs last year because they don't lose those close games with Jim Harbaugh.
And they had a lot of injuries.
And they did.
He can't control.
They had a lot of injuries.
They're going to got to get that under control.
But I could see Harbaugh turning that team around on a dime.
Yeah. But I just think it's going to be, if Andy Reid comes back and Peyton gets who he needs at quarterback,
and Pierce,
the Raiders can get who they need. I just think that's going to be such a division. I don't know. Or it might be the division where you get 3 of them in there. Like they did with the Browns division.
Yep.
You might get 3.
Could get 4.
Yeah, I mean, it might happen.
Here's the deal. I think of that division, it's safe to say this. Peyton knows he's got to go get a quarterback. Mm-hmm. I can't see them rolling in with Stidham as the quarterback next year. So I could see the Denver Broncos in the market to get a quarterback. I could see O'Connell is good, but he's not the guy.
Not yet.
The Raiders have to look at a quarterback.
Yep.
Now you have the Chargers. They have the quarterback. So now it's just building around Herbert, which Harbaugh's a master of doing anyway. And that's why I think they have the second best. Right now, they have the second best quarterback in the division. Mahomes is still number 1.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert's number 2. The Chargers and the Broncos know they need to do something to get up, at least get better, closer to a Herbert as far as talent-wise. And they don't have it yet.
Right.
Too much. They have a gap, way big gap at quarterback, Broncos and the Raiders, and that's where they need to get up because they can't. One thing you know and I know and everybody knows, in order to compete in the NFL, you need a quarterback.
Yeah. So I know they got to do it. I'm concerned about Jaden. Now, I wanted him to play in the Senior Bowl. He didn't go. So I was kind of surprised at that, but only thing I'm concerned with him is his size right now. Not when I say size, I'm talking about his body structure, not his size. He got the size. He's thin.
Yeah, he's thin.
So, but one thing we know about the NFL, they will beef you up.
Well, look at Lamar Jackson was kind of skinny.
He was his first year.
Out. His first year, but you know what?
He's not that way now.
No.
He's pretty thick.
These guys get with trainers and get in programs and they get working out. They list him at 210 pounds is what they say.
He just got long.
He's 6'4".
Yeah, and that's why. He's
a
just
lean.
long, and he got long limbs. Legs is long, arms
and he
long.
can move.
Yep, and that's why he looks so thin. But that's right. He probably can get up to 230, 225. Probably on that frame. When you look at it, you can see that he can definitely put it on there, and they'll do it.
Marvin Harrison recruited Marvin Harrison.
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis recruited him.
Yeah, him and our guy.
He could be a Raider.
What's our guy name? We played the game.
Yeah. Herm Edwards.
They recruited.
They recruited him. So does he be a Raider? We'll talk next week. We'll get the Super Bowl next week, but we'll talk more football. Oh, and the New York Knicks have won 15 out of 17, 9 in a row. They go for number 10. We'll get to the Knicks next week. Everybody stay safe. Do not drink and do not drive. Saturday morning sports.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge, a part of the Sports Map Radio Network.
I spend a lot of